previous episode, I said I was going to stop all conventional treatments. But the vines are still under disease pressures. So the real issue here is, what am I going to do to prevent disease? Welcome to the North Face of Wine. So, the good news in the vineyard is that, not, not without hard work, this type of literally wilding is mainly under control now. I still have a little piece we will see later, but you see, this is not possible. This is wilding. This episode is all about transition, treatments that seems to be high up in people's concern. And that in itself asks a question in me. Why are people so concerned about treatment? I'm so concerned because vineyards are ill. That is really the only conclusion we can have. We're going to have rain in a couple of days, and they're already treating for mildew, this fungal illness that everybody is absolutely scared of and should be. But I think the point is not to be scared of it, but rather deal with it. Deal with it in a positive way. We know that agro-engineers made mistakes, we know that, but there are groups of people who are in the forefront of agriculture, in the forefront of vitiforestry that I am going to attempt, and in that process, in that philosophy, disease is no longer so much of a problem because we help the vines to deal with it. There is no way of getting rid of mildew. There is no way at all. And every time it adapts. Every time there's a treatment, it adapts further. So we stop the war, and this is a Latin thing, it passes. We stop the war and we start making love here. And so disease is something to be concerned about, to not worry about, but deal with it in a proper way. Wilding is really not the solution, because this is, as soon as it rains, this parcel here, which is from someone doesn't live here, this is going to be destroyed at the first sign of rain. Too much vegetation, too much humidity, and the humidity needs to be in the ground mostly. It doesn't need to be on leaves or somewhere else. That is going to be a disaster. Well, here's a parcel I haven't seen yet. It's quite interesting. It's interesting because there's hardly anything left, and this is what I mean by wilding. If we let everything go, uh, a few vines may survive. We have seen in a previous episode where an entire fossil died, but yeah, very little will survive. I can see here they will get 2 grapes out of this vine. 2. And here about the same and not that big. So, what do we want? Do we want just a field or do we want a vineyard? If we have a vineyard, the idea is really it needs to be uh, economically viable. Otherwise, I mean, this is not a vineyard. And I see there's a little bit of work going on, but it's overtaken. It's a nice field. It could pass for a beautiful field, but vegetation took over, and the vines are not surviving. Vines in the wild, vines need trees. That is why we have wires. Vines, we need trees. They will go up the trees. They don't do well with grass. That's why the idea of grass cover is nice, but to me, it is only a midway of something that is greater, where vines really thrive. Vines thrive in a woody environment. We've been able, I've said before, they're sort of the dogs of plants. They are so domesticated. But in order to undo, if you will, years of enormous domestication and remain economically viable, we need to try something else. And that makes another point for vitiforestry. This parcel was on the way to going back to the vineyard. We're going to go back to the vineyard. I'll show you what it was like and what it is like now. It's good news. Let's go see. I've been watching this parcel for quite some time. It was interesting to me. That was even before it took over the vineyard, because they let this weed go. There are parcels around the village where people are not here all the time. And so this parcel was interesting to me. It is not far from the vineyard, but what happened is, first of all, this road dries up. I mean, literally, look at this. It crumbles. It crumbles. Once it dies, it completely crumbles. That's what happened in the vineyard last year. But what is interesting is that it's almost its own herbicide, because after this, very little grows. There are patches of some grass, but very little grows. It's quite interesting. That is not what I want. We do need to have a grass cover. The grass cover for now is where a lot of winemakers are. They recognize that some grass cover is beneficial. First, because it keeps the soil in place, and it lowers the temperature of the soil by 5 to 10 centigrade degrees. So, and everybody knows there is climate change, which kind we don't know. But we are nearly the end of April, even though it snowed a huge amount for the last 3 years. There's been no rain this month, and ideally, uh, there should be. So that said, we don't want a bare soil. That is very old school. A grass cover, we're going to call it middle school. And what we want to do is really very much avant-garde with this vitiforestry that will, in the end, have very little grass cover, because in a forest, grass is replaced by fungal matter, which is far, far more important for us. Fungal matter uh, messages communicates with deeper in the soil. It communicates in a far, far better way. It is subterranean largely. And that is really what we want to recreate, because then the soil will always be moist. Notice, we'll go up in the forest, not that far, and we'll see the soil is wet. That is what we want. We want wet soil. Any plant, wet soil and sun, we have a winner. And I believe that with a soil that is far richer in organic compounds, the wine itself will be far better. It will have subtleties that are not found in wine today. Now, let's go to the vineyard, and we have very good news. Oh, here's the result of a couple of months of work. You can see that it's pretty cleaned up now. All these white things that were all over the vineyards I've taken out. They were obsolete. The vines were grown already, but it was too much work and it was not done. I still have a little bit to do. I have about, I would say, 1/5 of the parcel, as you can see, is still a bit of a mess. But essentially, it's mostly cleaned up. I still have a couple of days work, and that part will be over. The woad will be gone. It's all done by hand. This one, I want to do an experiment on this piece right here. As you can see, I laid it down. I mean, it's enormous. It's absolutely enormous. I've done this by hand with a pickaxe. But this one I laid down. Ultimately, a living system should defend itself. What we are trying to attempt here is to recreate that in a vineyard where treatment have been increasing up to 50 from 30, 20 years ago. I want to reject that idea and say that we can bring to the vine in the first place, as a first step, we can bring to the vine what it needs, help to fight disease. And if not, I think there are alternative treatment rather than just try to kill, for the most part, mildew. That is what people spray the vineyards the most for. So, if we want to bring this natural environment to its most natural element, we need to add trees, hence vitiforestries. And within that system, the soil will also change because the soils are now essentially dead. There's not much terroir left, frankly. And that comes in the long term. So, in the next episode, what I will show you is what I'm doing in terms of bringing what the vines need themselves to thrive, but still within this old style environment. And then as we go along and the environment changes, the nature will take over, man will stay back and be able to manage this vitiforestry environment that will be or should be self-sustaining. If we look much further down the line, if we look at 50 or 100 years, and if we want to transfer this culture, Latin culture most particularly, but not only, or aspect of the Latin culture where we celebrate around a glass of wine, this aspect of family and love, I think is absolutely crucial that the vineyards themselves change because, well, with climate change, it doesn't seem to be viable to keep an old style going that is absolutely obsolete at this moment. And with that, in vines we trust.